Hello, and thanks for watching the program. Got a very special episode of Busting the Narrative for you here today, so let's get stuck right into it, shall we? Now, if you've been around politics, there's a few rules that is crucial for everybody to observe. Number one, just be normal. Number two, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. And the third and perhaps most important one is this. When you find yourself in a hole, for God's sake, stop digging. Someone should have told Kristi Noem, she's the governor of South Dakota, all this, because she used to be a shortlist candidate for the Republican VEEP stakes. But now it has been revealed in her own memoirs that she is both a dog killer and a fantasist. What am I talking about? Well, let's find out as we go busting the narrative. Right, well, Kristi Noem had pretty much already shot herself and her chances of being Donald Trump's VP pick in the foot, which is a bit more than we can say for her former hunting spaniel, Cricket, who, in her newly released memoirs, she writes about shooting in a gravel pit. Someone, somehow, in her team, somehow she thought this would make her look tough, not crazy and cruel. Okay, then, but guess what? It doesn't even end there. It turns out that in the first edition of her book, she also claimed to have stared down North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. Only thing is, it never happened. Anyway, this was all the subject of a Trainwreck interview on Face the Nation. Let's watch how this unfolded. First, the passage about North Korea and what Noem said about it.
You talk about meeting some world leaders, and one specific one, quote, "I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. I've been a children's pastor after all." Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage, and I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we went forward and have made some edits. So I'm glad that this book is being released in a couple of days and that those edits will be in place and that people will have the updated version.
I mean, the quote is bizarre enough, but didn't she even read the book? The host, Margaret Brennan, did an admirable job of trying to run this down.
You talk about your time in the Armed Services Committee from 2013 to 2015. In that period of time, the leader of South Korea was a female president. I'm wondering, who is it that you confused Kim Jong-un with?
Well, I think you need to remember, Margaret, and everybody needs to remember that I've worked on ag policy and federal policy for over 30 years.
Can't tell a man from a woman? I thought it was Democrats who had trouble answering the question, what is a woman? But anyway, Brennan pressed on bravely into this valley of weirdness.
You made the point to bring him up twice, and that he was a little tyrant.
Do you have a question for me, Margaret?
Yes, I do. South Korea is a treaty ally. North Korea is a nuclear-armed adversary. So that's a pretty big thing to confuse. I know you read this book before it was published because you released video of your recording of the audiobook. You didn't catch these errors when you were recording it?
Oh, Margaret, as soon as it was brought to my attention, I took action to make sure that it was reflected. And
apparently, according to Kristi Noem, it's the interviewer who's the problem.
Asking for why am I being treated differently than every other person that you've interviewed? I've looked at your last several weeks of your interviews. You don't interrupt other people. You let them talk. Thank you for inviting me to have this conversation about this book.
Well, let's go to Senator John Fetterman, who happily was the next guest on the program, for his review of how that all went down.
You're cracking up. Do you want to tell us what you're responding to there?
Oh, that interview, that was magnificent. No,
Absolutely, Senator. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for watching. To support this channel, please like, share, and subscribe below. And I'll see you next time for more Busting the Narrative. Bye-bye.